Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. Paterson, New Jersey has become ground zero in the controversy over mail-in balloting. That after a sitting city councilman, Michael Jackson, and a councilman-elect, Alex Mendte, were charged with voter fraud. So how does the mayor feel about that? Here's my interview with the mayor, Andre Sayegh. Mayor, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Larry.
Paterson, New Jersey has been infused into a national debate. And I'm certain you don't want to be infused for the topic you're infused in. And that is the fact that two councilmen, two elected councilmen, one sitting, have been charged with voter fraud. So the national debate is whether we should have mail-in ballots and whether states should go ahead with mail-in ballots and whether that should be funded by Congress. The president keeps bringing up Paterson. Those opposed keep bringing up Paterson. Do they have a point?
So I'm glad that Donald Trump is not tweeting about Paterson anymore, because he always misspells the city's name. He adds an extra T. There's only one T in Paterson. But he keeps talking about it. And quite frankly, you have to credit us because we identified it immediately and brought those that were responsible to justice. So at least it can prove that, yes, if there is any wrongdoing, we will be able to identify it. And quite frankly, during this pandemic, we have no other choice but to vote by mail, because we want to continue to slow the spread, particularly in our city, where we've done so well. We made national headlines that Donald Trump has not talked about. We made national headlines with our contact tracing efforts. There was a New York Times article. We've appeared on CNN and various other media outlets. So we have gone from 262 cases in one day at the peak of the pandemic on April 16th to about 5 yesterday. So we've really driven down our number. So because we're so mindful of the fact that this spreads very quickly, we have to vote by mail. And Paterson is not only an example, of course, of voter fraud, but it's also an example of we have a vigilant attorney general cooperating with people on the street, saying, look, these folks, they engage in some of this skullduggery, and we're going to make sure that we right this wrong.
So you are still a proponent of mail-in balloting?
Well, personally, I'm a traditionalist. I like to go to the polls, go behind the curtain, cast my ballot, pull the lever, whatever I mean, and then close it. But considering that we have a public health crisis, if we have to vote by mail, then that's the way to go right now. That's how we have to exercise our rights.
Doesn't Paterson give the example that it is ripe for voter fraud? It seemed like it was so easy.
It does. However, I feel like people are going to be more cognizant, and I'm glad that people were cooperating with the Attorney General's office to help identify individuals that were not playing by the rules.
I heard an interview with you right after the charges were announced, and you said in that interview, I was suspicious. What were you?
I certainly was.
What were you suspicious of?
Larry, I got to be brutally honest. People have known this has been going on in Paterson for quite some time. But now you have an attorney general. Yes, you have a very vigilant attorney general. He came in, and the FBI has been here for a while. They've been looking at past elections. So you have the potential of something else emerging as well relative to what has occurred in the last 4 or 5 years. So we know some of the players, and we know the games they played. And now law enforcement is here making a strong statement as to why this cannot be tolerated. Because at the core of our democracy is the right to vote. And your vote is your voice.
I know you see this, because you said that. I know you see this as a reason we should go ahead with mail-in balloting, because the people that did it were caught, allegedly did it, were caught. But I'll be honest, it sounds like because you're saying it's been happening for a long time, this makes it easier for that kind of hanky-panky. So if this has only existed, I'm sure it doesn't just exist in Paterson. Isn't that a reason not to do it?
Well, I'm glad you used the word term hanky-panky. I haven't heard that in a while. But I will say, now that it has been brought to light, I feel more comfortable with vote by mail. I really do.
Across the country, not just in New Jersey, but across.
Yes, I was leery because this has occurred in he's not pointing to anyone else. I mean, I've heard stories in North Carolina where it's occurred, but I guess Paterson is just an easy target.
Well, because 4 people have been charged. That's probably why.
That's right.
Councilman Michael Jackson was sworn into office despite these charges. Do you agree with that?
Actually, I don't agree with that. I mean, he can argue that he's innocent until proven guilty. You'll see Councilman-elect Mendte was not sworn in because there was a legal challenge posed by his opponent. Now, if Michael Jackson's opponent would have mounted a legal challenge, he would have been prevented from taking office. And I feel like the circumstances surrounding the election, the controversy, being charged with the very reason that got you to that seat, yeah, I don't think he should have been sworn in.
That states and municipalities are suffering because of the pandemic. I was interested to read 2 things that I was interested to read that seemed to be in conflict of each other. One was that you pushed your fiscal year back, and that way you were able to push back a rise in property taxes of 2% for more than a year. But at the same time, overtime costs were much higher than they were last year. Can you exist? Can you keep going without an influx of money, considering your cost have gone up?
Larry, we're going to need that SMART Act to be adopted by the Congress. We appreciate that first round of relief in May, but quite frankly, this crisis continues. So we're going to need Congress to infuse our economies with some support. And the way that this legislation, the Smart Fund Act, is constructed, it'll help every town. No one will be left out. But Paterson,
how did you have an increase in overtime when most of the people had to stay at home, didn't they?
No, we're talking about first responders, primarily the police officers. So, and you know, we had a surge in gun violence, so that drove up some of our costs too. Which is, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Paterson did pretty well. Paterson did pretty well with the. You didn't have the violence that many other communities across the country.
We had a surge, and we've been able to. I mean, I don't want to speak too soon, but we've been able to control it somewhat. But you never know with gun violence.
Well, Sarah, I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Larry.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Please, would love to have you on again. That was Paterson Mayor Andre Sayegh. One final note, it was a lawsuit that prevented Alex Mendte from being sworn into office. Now the judge in that case has ordered a new election, a special election. Alex Mendte will have to run for that seat again. When Jersey Matters continues, the lanternflies are here in the Garden State. We'll talk to the 2 men in charge of fighting back that invasion. That's when we come right back.